Viewers, before we get into this one, drop your city and your local time in the comments, because I promise by the time this story ends, you'll be shaking your head wondering how these HOA folks get away with half the nonsense they try. So picture this. He's at the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning in March, coffee steaming in a chipped ceramic mug, the kind of mug that already survived 3 dishwashers and at least 1 accidental drop, when the envelope lands in his hands. It's heavy, the paper too stiff, like they wanted him to feel the weight of their authority before he even broke the seal. He flips it open, expecting some boring reminder about dues, or maybe a flyer about the spring barbecue. But instead, he finds a formal decree that reads like it was drafted by the Supreme Court itself. Remove your vessel within 28 days. His vessel, by the way, is a 35-foot fishing boat he's babied for 12 years, slip number 23, polished white hull with a blue trim so clean you could check your hair in the reflection. He actually laughs at first, the kind of laugh you let out when you're waiting for someone to shout, "Just kidding." But no, this is real. The letter says his boat is an aesthetic disturbance, harming property values. Historians still argue whether ancient Romans invented bureaucracy or just perfected it, but he swears Angela Brooks, their HOA president, is carrying the torch into the modern age. He strolls down to the marina that morning, the Florida air crisp enough to remind him why he ever left Ohio winters behind, and checks his boat like maybe it grew horns overnight. But she's fine, ropes coiled neatly, gear stowed, deck spotless. Meanwhile, he sees other boats with peeling paint, some bigger than his by 10 feet, a couple looking like they barely survived the Carter administration, yet nobody's complaining about those. Funny thing about selective enforcement, it always smells like politics. Angela is waiting for him at the Marina office, mid-50s, always in heels and a blazer even when checking her mailbox, her tiny designer dog yapping at her side. She greets him with that fixed smile that never warms her eyes. "Mr. Harris, I assume you've received our letter about your situation." Situation, like he's harboring a pirate ship. He keeps his voice even, says, "Yes, Ms. Brooks, though I'm confused what the problem is." She gestures at the boat with a theatrical sweep. As you can see, it dominates the visual landscape. He almost asks if she's auditioning for Shakespeare in the Park. He points out 6 boats bigger than his, several rustier, and asks what makes his such a menace. She slips into politician mode. Sometimes the spirit of community rules matters more than the letter of the law. Translation: there's no rule, but she's determined anyway. He suggests she rewrite the rules. She bristles, and from there the conversation spirals like a soap opera argument. She hints at legal action, enforcement mechanisms, all while he's noticing the marina signage looks generic, like something from a commercial facility, not community-owned property. His gut tells him something's off, though he doesn't yet know just how deep this rabbit hole goes. When a second letter arrives a week later, thicker, sharper in tone, with photographs that make his boat look like Godzilla rising from the lake thanks to some wide-angle lens trickery, he feels that gut punch again. Somebody's been sneaking around taking pictures of his property at night, calling it visual evidence. Now it's not just about rules, it's about dignity. He stares at those papers and thinks, if they want a war over a boat, maybe they've just picked the wrong sailor to mess with. So he dives into the records, the way some guys dive into crossword puzzles or fantasy football stats. Except what he uncovers makes both those pastimes look tame. Through his connections in the marine contracting world, he pulls up county property filings, cross-references old HOA documents, even digs through archives like a modern-day Indiana Jones, though instead of a whip, he's armed with coffee, a highlighter, and a lot of late nights. And there it is in black and white. The marina is not, and never was, HOA property. It belongs to something called Coastal Properties LLC, a company that didn't even exist until 2 years ago. Coincidentally, or maybe not, Angela Brooks became HOA president 3 years ago. Historians still argue whether coincidences actually exist, or whether everything is just cause and effect hiding behind a curtain. He keeps digging, peeling back layers, and eventually the mask falls off. Coastal Properties LLC is owned by Hannah Brooks, Angela's daughter, 26 years old, law student at the University of Florida, apparently moonlighting as a real estate mogul. The pieces click into place like a rigged jigsaw puzzle. Angela manufactures problems in communities she controls. Hannah swoops in to buy up properties cheap, and suddenly what was once shared community space becomes private business. It's not just bold, it's almost elegant in its ruthlessness. He has to admit, if evil ever got an MBA, it would look something like this. Armed with this bombshell, he confronts Angela, not with shouting, but with an email subject line that says simply, "Interesting family business you have there." 2 hours later, she's on the phone, her voice wobbling even though she's trying to keep that Ice Queen composure. She claims her daughter's business is separate from her HOA role, which is like saying the left hand doesn't know the right hand is reaching into the cookie jar. He keeps it professional, just reminding her these are public records and the residents deserve transparency. Her defensiveness tells him everything. She's rattled, maybe even scared. So he requests a formal board meeting. He knows Angela's stacked the board with loyalists: Jim, the nervous accountant; Lisa, the realtor who owes her referrals; Sandra, the widow who depends on her for social circles. But paper evidence has a funny way of cutting through loyalty. He distributes copies of incorporation filings, property transfers, timelines that make Angela's pattern impossible to deny. He watches their faces as the truth seeps in. Jim murmurs, "This doesn't add up." That single line is more devastating to Angela than any outburst. Of course, Angela counters with her usual nonsense about protecting community values. But when pressed for an actual written rule that forbids his boat, she has nothing. The air in the room shifts. Even her allies shift uncomfortably, realizing they've been enlisted in a scam bigger than some squabble over aesthetics. The retaliation escalates fast. McCoy and Associates, her pet law firm, sends him a cease and desist dripping with legalese, threatening damages if he keeps defaming Angela. But here's the kicker: they never deny the facts. They don't dispute Hannah's ownership, don't touch the evidence at all. It's like someone accusing you of stealing cookies, and instead of denying it, you threaten to sue them for hurting your feelings. He sees right through it. And then comes the jackpot. Buried in the original 1992 neighborhood planning documents, he finds a clause most people overlooked for decades. A 20-foot wide public access easement to Lake Harmony, running right through the marina. Never vacated, never transferred, meaning no one, not Angela, not Hannah, can legally block residents from using the lake. That little forgotten line of legalese flips the board completely. It means he not only has a right to keep his boat, but he can challenge the entire scheme. Imagine winning a chess match because you remembered pawns can promote to queens. Same energy. Now the idea crystallizes. If Angela wants to play power games, he'll answer with bureaucracy sharper than hers. He applies for an emergency dock safety inspection using his marine contractor license, and within 24 hours the county gives him the green light. He has the authority to lock down the entire marina for a 48-hour safety review. It's bold, it's legal, and it flips the script. The same docks Angela's been waving as a banner of community pride are now wrapped in yellow caution tape. And the weekend crowd about to hit the lake? They're all about to find out what happens when an HOA president plays games with the wrong neighbor. Saturday dawns bright and flawless, the kind of Florida morning where the lake looks like polished glass, and he's down at the marina before most of his neighbors finish their first pancake. Yellow caution tape flutters in the breeze, safety notices taped to posts, and his clipboard of county-approved paperwork gives him authority that even Angela can't bulldoze. Within 2 hours, the marina that usually hums with chatter, fishing rods, and kids chasing each other is a ghost zone, the dock sealed off like a movie crime scene. People wander down in disbelief. Birthday parties canceled, the fishing tournament postponed, weekend plans drowned before they ever left shore. And every single one of them calls Angela, not him. By noon, Angela's phone is on fire. 80 residents screaming about ruined weekends, demanding answers. She calls the county 3 times, insisting they revoke his permit. They politely explain his credentials are valid, his inspection justified, and her threats meaningless. It's a small ironic justice. She can't claim the marina is HOA property because Hannah owns it. She can't claim Hannah's rights because of the public easement. She can't say no inspection is needed because safety laws trump her imaginary standards. Every argument she tries just ties her tighter in her own contradictions. Historians still argue whether the French Revolution began over bread or bureaucracy, but here on Lake Harmony, it starts with a 35-foot fishing boat and some yellow tape. Word spreads like wildfire. By Sunday, Residents are no longer just irritated about missed weekends. They're furious about where their money's been going. For years, they paid Marina fees to the HOA, only to learn the property was never theirs. How do we know our money wasn't stolen? Becomes the question echoing at backyard fences and driveway chats. The anger turns into resolve. They demand refunds, threaten lawsuits, whisper about voting Angela out. He sees it happening in real time. The neighborhood that once shrugged off her bossy rules is suddenly alive with rebellion. Then Monday hits, and with it, the county inspector. This isn't just a clipboard check. It's a full-scale investigation into unlicensed marina operations. Electrical systems out of code, flotation devices deteriorating, fire safety non-existent. And the biggest bombshell? Hannah never filed for the business licenses or insurance required to run a commercial marina. Residents paying fees had zero protection if disaster struck. The Brooks operation isn't just shady, it's dangerous. Angela's empire collapses like a sandcastle hit by a wave. Within weeks, local media picks up the story. Mother-daughter team profiteers off HOA communities. Photos of Angela's manicured smile and Hannah's incorporation papers plaster the front page. At the emergency HOA meeting, over 200 residents pack the hall. Angela trembles at the podium, still trying to spin the story as a malicious attack by a disgruntled boater, but the vote of no confidence passes almost unanimously. $68,000 in bogus fees exposed, lawsuits filed, state investigators circling. She resigns that very night. Her house sells at a loss, her name dragged through the courts, while Hannah faces bar investigations that might end her law career before it begins. McCoy and Associates, their loyal law firm, gets slapped with ethics sanctions for enabling the scam. Months later, the marina is back in community hands, now managed transparently with financial reports and annual votes. His boat sits proudly at Slip 23, no longer a disturbance, but a symbol of standing up to bullies. Real estate values rise, not fall, because buyers crave a neighborhood where corruption was defeated openly. And Angela? The last time he sees her is from the deck of his boat, as her moving truck crawls out of the neighborhood. She slows down, stares at him for a long 10 seconds, her face a storm of anger, defeat, and resignation. He doesn't wave. He doesn't need to. The silence says it all. And that's when the calm finally returns. He leans back on his deck that evening, the lake glowing orange with sunset, kids laughing on the pier, neighbors sharing beers instead of whispered fears. He thinks about how people often mistake patience for weakness, compliance for stupidity. But he's proof that waiting doesn't mean surrendering. It means biding your time until you strike where it counts. The best revenge isn't rage, it's justice carried out so thoroughly the guilty can't breathe without tripping over their own lies. Now the wind down, soft and steady like the lake at dusk. Imagine the ripples settling, voices fading to murmurs, a hush falling over the water. He knows the fight cost him months of stress, letters, late nights, but it gave his community back its soul. Justice wasn't loud. It was patient, measured, undeniable. And if there's one lesson he leaves behind, it's this. When you shine a light on corruption, you don't just free yourself. You free everyone who thought silence was the only option. The marina tonight is alive again. Laughter spilling over the docks, lanterns glowing like fireflies, and his boat, steady and certain at Slip 23, rocking gently as if nodding in agreement. The story drifts to an end, not with a shout, but with the quiet assurance that sometimes standing tall is enough to turn an entire tide.